Little Red Riding Hood was a sweet little girl loved by everyone, especially her grandmother. One day, her grandmother gave her a beautiful red cloak with a hood, which she wore so often that everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. Her mother asked her to take a basket of food to her sick grandmother, who lived in a cottage deep in the woods. Before she left, her mother reminded her to stay on the path and not to talk to strangers. Little Red Riding Hood promised to be careful and set off through the forest. Along the way, she met a wolf who seemed friendly but had wicked intentions. The wolf asked her where she was going, and Little Red Riding Hood innocently told him about her grandmother's cottage. The wolf suggested she pick some flowers to make her grandmother happy, and Little Red Riding Hood wandered off the path to do so. Meanwhile, the clever wolf hurried to the grandmother's cottage, knocked on the door, and pretended to be Little Red Riding Hood. The grandmother, not suspecting anything, let him in, and the wolf swallowed her whole. The wolf then dressed in the grandmother's clothes, climbed into her bed, and waited for Little Red Riding Hood. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived, she noticed something strange about her grandmother. She said, "Grandmother, what big ears you have?" And the wolf replied, "The better to hear you with, my dear." Then she said, "Grandmother, what big eyes you have?" And the wolf replied, "The better to see you with, my dear." Finally, she said, "Grandmother, what big teeth you have?" And the wolf roared, "The better to eat you with." The wolf jumped out of bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood in one gulp. Afterward, the wolf fell asleep, snoring loudly, his belly full. A passing huntsman heard the snoring and thought it strange for the old woman. He entered the cottage, saw the wolf, and realized what had happened. With his knife, the huntsman carefully cut open the wolf's belly, freeing Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother. They were both unharmed, though shaken, and Little Red Riding Hood promised never to stray from the path again. To teach the wolf a lesson, they filled his belly with heavy stones before sewing it shut. When the wolf woke up and tried to run away, the stones were so heavy that he collapsed and died. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother thanked the huntsman and enjoyed the food together. From that day on, Little Red Riding Hood learned to always listen to her mother's advice.